Hey family, it's your girl Alyssa Nicole. We are going to be doing a voiceover today just because. So here it is. I'm so excited to be making these spicy green collard greens. I really didn't do it in much of a traditional way. I kind of experimented with this one, added some things that were a little bit different than what I would normally put in my collard greens. As you can see right now, I am cutting up an onion. So I think a lot of times when we do collard greens and when we do onion, we would dice them, but I like the taste of onion. So we're going to keep them in nice, thick, not thick, but not too thin, but a little bit thick slices here. You can see I'm cutting with the little grooves in there. So I like that cut a lot. It kind of preserves the flavor because it doesn't break through the cell membrane as much. And then the other thing that I'm doing that is new and different to this recipe is I'm adding mushrooms. So sometimes people, they like to add turkey neck or pork or whatever the case may be to add a depth of flavor. Oh my gosh, I find that mushrooms add that depth just as well. So we're not going to be using mushroom broth, but I'm almost certain that a mushroom broth would be just like so good with this dish as well. If you could make some mushroom broth or buy some mushroom broth, you can always get dried mushrooms and boil those in hot water, and that will create a mushroom broth that you can then cook your greens in, and it really does add a great depth of flavor. So this was a great choice adding in mushrooms. As you can see, I have baby bella, and then I also have oyster mushrooms. So I took like some small pieces of the oyster mushroom and put them in there, and I'm kind of cutting them in half to get them to the size that I want. And because to make this spicy, to add the heat into it, we're adding some Thai chilies. Okay, like these Thai chilies do pack a punch, so I want you to be very careful with them. And if you can, remove some of the seeds out of them. They are really tiny, but the seeds are where the heat mostly is at. But they pack a kick, and I used about 3 or 4 of them. It wasn't too bad for me, but if you're not a spice lover, this might be a little bit too much for you, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, I definitely was like, 3 don't look like enough. I needed a little bit more heat, so I added one more in there, and then I kind of saw those excess seeds there, and I just kind of scooted them to the side because I'm like, you know what, I don't want to do too much. And yeah, you can go ahead and pick through and remove as many as you want, just so you're not adding too much heat. So as you can see in the pan, I added some olive oil and some butter, and I melted that down. And then we're going to add our mushrooms in there, and cook those down. You can add a little bit of salt and pepper, the salt to kind of draw the moisture out, and to flavor it a little bit. So I kind of just did that and cooked that down. So one thing that I can say that I did with this that was, I guess, not the best is I kind of overcooked my mushrooms just a little bit, and you'll see in a second how they looked. But the thing about it was, I thought when I initially saw that I overcooked it, and then I realized that it was actually perfect. So as you can see, they're really really brown, they're really really crunchy on one side, but it actually was beautiful because the depth that it created, because when I add in the other ingredients, and it kind of, the charredness of it kind of added a more smokiness to it, so it just added great depth of flavor when I added in the broth. So as you can see here, after that I added in the onions, and I turned the fire down just a little bit so the onions don't burn. And you can see I'm tasting the mushroom just to see how they taste, and oh my god, they were so good. So I'm adding the onions in, and then we're gonna add our garlic and our red chilies, our Thai red chilies in, and give that a nice stir. Yeah, so it's really good. And this recipe really just kind of I don't know, it really inspired me. Like, I'm like, this is the new greens that's going into rotation for me. So the spices I used was Cajun seasoning. I used let's see what I have next. I believe that's some paprika, or I think that's some paprika. Um, so I know I use Cajun seasonings. I use some paprika. I used onion powder and garlic powder, and I think I used some chili powder. So there is called Kashmiri chili powder. It's a really good chili powder. You can find it at Asian or Indian stores, but that was Kashmiri chili powder, yeah. And then I added in some black pepper. So I didn't really do a lot of seasonings because I really wanted to focus on, actually I lied, I did not add the Kashmiri chili, that was paprika. So it was just Cajun seasoning, paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, and then black pepper, and that's what how I did them. I washed my greens off screen and ribbon sliced them, and because it's not collard green season, obviously my collard green bunch was just, so it was a small bunch that I used, but so I just kind of cut that down, and then I'm going to saute it till it slightly wilts, and then we're going to add in our liquid. So I just added in some water, and then we're going to add in some better than bouillon no chicken broth. So that's the broth that I used for this, better than bouillon no chicken broth. And as you can see, I'm kind of checking there because I was like, man, I think I added too much water, but I actually didn't add too much water because some of the water will evaporate. So as you can see there, there's my no chicken broth, and I use a little bit more than what they recommend, so keep that in mind. And as you can see, like I said, I thought I used too much liquid, but I didn't, because some of that liquid definitely does evaporate as you're cooking. So that is the finished meal. I made some sweet potatoes and fried up some tofu. Thank you.